brain processes them. The mind and the brain are a total separate entity. The emotional body and the brain are a total separate entity. It is a factory, the brain, that is responsible for taking high vibratory frequencies, which are thoughts and feelings, and translate them, actually transform them, I should say, into a chemical reality. That chemical reality is then released from the brain into the bloodstream, into the fluid that encompasses the spinal cord, the cerebrospinal fluid, so that every cell in your body knows what you are thinking. Every cell in your body chemically knows what to do then to create the corresponding feeling based upon the communication between the mental and emotional body. Now, I will say this once more because it is extremely important that you understand this. Your brain is, again, a tool, a factory that is responsible for making available to the cells of your body the information that is being radiated from the mind, which are thoughts, and also allowing you to experience the sensation that your thoughts provoke in your emotional body. So that means then that if you decide that you want to have a less than loving thought about a person or a situation, immediately you will notice that you immediately move into discomfort, because by creating those kind of thoughts, the discomfort and the discordance that you create, the disharmony, immediately affects, first of all, the originator of the discordance. So can you imagine people who are walking around who have these opinions, of many people who have these opinions of relationships that they've had in childhood, interactions that they've had in high school, situations that they might have had on the job, and they're talking about events that have happened 15, 20 years ago. This is a chronic excretion that is being made by your own brain every day, moment to moment, that is now released upon your cells of your body. The cells in your body now have to process this every day. So you really get a big boost of this when there is a person or a reminder of the event that then really comes into play. Because as long as you have not come into a feeling of being comfortable with the experience, the subconscious or the right brain is constantly throwing off that same remnant of thought that is constantly stimulating the brain to produce the corresponding neurotransmitter. So if you just begin to understand what I've just said, you can understand why it is going to be impossible for the tissues to look like they did 15 years ago or 20 years ago, not just necessarily because of the quality of food that you're eating, not just because you might not be exercising, but because of the internal pollution that you are constantly creating of your own free will that destroys your own tissues. Now, see, you have to understand how profound that is, because when we talk about immortality, when we talk about agelessness, when we talk about infinite vitality, these things are real. It's already been proven. This is 94. In 1990, there was a German that received, a Russian that received the Nobel Prize for proving that mammalian tissue never ages as long as the internal and external environment remain constant. So you have to understand that's awesome. So that means that if this is really true, this gentleman took a heart and kept it alive for 25 years. And the electrical current that was able to be carried by the muscles of the heart were exactly the same the first day he isolated and 25 years later. So the time period was not a factor at all as to the deterioration of this tissue, as long as he was able to make sure that there were proper nutrients on board and that the actual energy carried by the muscle did not deviate below a particular standard. So if this is something that can really happen in a test tube with all the other unknown phenomena that allows us to have energy by breathing, by being exposed to the natural environment, by actually being in the presence of other human beings that carry a higher frequency of energy, which always means that you'll be able to receive energy from them, then how can you explain the aging process, deterioration, illness, and death? It has to be something that is provoked from within. We find that the simpler people who have been classified by certain cultures as being retarded or very simple in mindset, for whatever reason, they age very slowly, if aging at all. They basically maintain their vitality and are able to be, centurions without any effort at all, as opposed to the individuals who feel that the lifestyle that they have is stressful, that they feel that they have to always watch their back, they can't trust the people that they're around, relationships don't work, etc. I mean, they're out of here by 60 years old. So I think it's very important to begin to understand that the diseases that we are now dealing with in the hospital institution originate from an internal, endogenous, as we say, source. And one of my biggest concerns is the consistent resistance that the present hospital system exhibits in wanting to look at the lifestyle and the values and the perceptions of individuals that come in complaining of disease. We have been able to identify many diseases that are truly invoked by states of consciousness: asthma, heart disease, narcolepsy, cancer as one of the main ones, arthritis. I mean, and the list goes on and on and on and on, that we can identify a definite personality type that has particular belief systems, that have particular feelings that they actually emote or create, that now exhibit in the tissues and create these particular defects. There's a book that I acquired about 2 months ago that was a whole study that was done by Harvard University that had 2 chapters on how diseased was a learned behavior pattern. It's understood that illness is learned. It is not a natural concept, and it's not a natural phenomena that human beings are supposed to experience. It is learned. The second chapter behind this chapter, entitled Illness as a Learned Behavior Pattern, was, are you teaching your children to be ill? Which was very, very interesting, because then they began to elucidate how certain behavior patterns in the parents, certain communications, and also the exposure to information such as watching TV and recognizing that supposedly if you overeat, you're supposed to have an upset stomach, and then you're supposed to take Tums, or if your nose is running, then that automatically means that you have a cold, so therefore you've got to have NyQuil or whatever else, and if your eyes seem to be stinging or whatever, then that's a problem. Now you have to have, eye drops to put in it. All of these things are actually behavioral in teaching adults, and especially children, that X leads to Y. Okay, Y leads to Z. So therefore, it appears to them that this is a normal, acceptable behavior, even in the face of discomfort that they are to accept. Now, I think that one of the things that is most phenomenal is the fact that we still do not recognize that because the capacity to be here indefinitely, physical immortality is a reality, but it also requires, just like everything else, a state of consciousness and a lifestyle. And we have to accept that. It's just like anything else. If you're not willing to basically understand the technique to generate the phenomena, you can't have it. It's just that simple. So the idea to just assume that you don't have to do anything but just sit there like a bump on a log and you're going to be here for 200 years is inappropriate. So if the goal is that you want to be here 200 years, 500 years, 800 years, fine. That is truly a capacity that the body can give you without question. But to be able to do that requires, first of all, a consciousness, and then secondly, a lifestyle that allows the body to utilize its energy in the most efficient and effective way. So when we get involved in activities that are not efficient, that are not effective, obviously this is not a person who truly has long-term intent of being here for an indefinite amount of time.